In Lesson 1, we learned how to open the LibreOffice Writer program, enter a bit of text, print the text on the printer, and save the document. In this lesson, we're going to get serious about formatting text. If the document from Lesson 1 is not on your display, then you should open LibreOffice Writer and open the My Lesson 1 document. And here you see LibreOffice Writer with the My Lesson 1 document open, and now we're going to create a new document that we can use in Lesson 2, but we're going to preserve the Lesson 1 document for possible future use. From the menu bar, we'll select File, Save As, we'll go to the folder where we're saving our documents, and we'll change the file name from My Lesson 1 to My Lesson 2. And then we'll select the Save button. And now you see from the title bar that we're now working on My Lesson 2. At this point, My Lesson 1 and My Lesson 2 are identical, but we're soon going to be making some serious changes, and you should want to go back and restart Lesson 2 all over again for practice, so we don't want to destroy the My Lesson 1 document. Let's take a little time to review the LibreOffice Writer user interface. And by the way, when you're learning new software, one of the challenges is to try to remember all the vocabulary that the computer programmers use when they create these programs. Unfortunately, a lot of times they'll take old-fashioned words that you learned long ago, but they'll give them brand new meanings, and then that can be confusing. So make a note of the vocabulary as we move along. The very top horizontal line on the display is called the title bar, and that's common to most Windows programs. The title bar will have the name of the program that's currently being used and the file name of the document that's currently open. Right underneath the title bar, we have the menu bar. And as you saw in Lesson 1, you can select each one of these items on the menu bar, and that will cause a drop-down list to reveal a number of different program functions and features. Below the menu bar, we have the toolbar. And the toolbar provides quick access, one-click access, to a lot of the tools that are frequently used in LibreOffice Writer. The next horizontal line is the text formatting toolbar. By the way, this line will change when you're working on graphics objects. You'll see that in a later lesson. This is what's called a context-sensitive toolbar. It changes depending on the context in which you're working. This gray line on the left side is the left page margin. And there's also a line showing the top margin, the right margin, and if we were to scroll down on this page, would see the bottom margin. The white area represents the full page of the document itself, and so you see here the page boundary. Now the space between the page boundary and the left page margin can be changed, and you'll frequently format the page and adjust these margins to your own preference. The very bottom line is called the status bar. Over here in the lower left, we have a note that's the page count area. Right now it says page 1 of 1. In later documents, you might be on page 3 of 4. Next to the page count area is the word count. LibreOffice Writer not only keeps track of how many words are in your document, but it also keeps track of how many individual characters there are in the document. A lot of bookkeeping going on in the background. The next section of the status bar shows the current page style. Right now in this illustration, it shows the default style. Later on, you'll be creating your own custom page styles, and they will show up in this area. In these tutorials, we're working in English, in the USA version of English, and that can change because LibreOffice is an international program. In the lower right is an area where we control the page zoom. There's a slider that you can click and drag back and forth, and there's a little minus sign and a little plus sign that you can step by step change the page zoom size. When you zoom in, the text will appear larger. but that's only a display feature. When you zoom in or out, even though the text appears larger or smaller, where you're not changing the size of the text as it will appear in the printed document. The right side of this display has an area called the sidebar. Right now it's set for the properties sidebar, but as you'll see in a later lesson, we can change the contents of the sidebar to be something other than properties. I need to take a moment to describe the difference between proportional fonts and monospace fonts. The old typewriters used monospace fonts, and what that meant is all of the characters were the same width. A W was the same width as an I. This allowed typists to format as they go, and it allowed them to depend on the spaces of the fonts to do the formatting. In proportional fonts, a W is much wider than an I. In this example, you'll see that the capital P is wider than an I and wider than an L. It turns out that proportional fonts make for better looking documents. Ever since the days of Gutenberg hundreds of years ago, there's been a constant effort to be able to produce better looking documents faster. The old typesetting approach produced very good documents. You had bins of characters that could be assembled, and all the characters were proportionally sized, and it made for very nice looking documents, but it was very slow. The advent of typewriters sped up the process considerably, but because of the monospace fonts that the typewriters used, the documents didn't look pretty. Now that we have the capability within word processing to use proportional fonts, and we have all the speed of the typewriter in creating the documents, but with the word processing software, all of the power of the typesetter to produce very nice looking documents. As a result, typewriters are obsolete. Well, back to the main part of our lesson on word processing. In order to edit documents in word processing, you need to be able to very carefully and very precisely control where the text cursor is. Most standard full-size keyboards on computers have a set of keys in the right side that are called cursor control keys. You'll find keys with a left arrow, a right arrow, a down arrow, and an up arrow. You'll also find some keys that are labeled End and Home, and there's another key labeled CTRL, which stands for Control. Now these keys are very important in precisely controlling where the text cursor is. Unfortunately, if you're using a laptop, the keyboard designs of laptops are all over the place. There are some laptops that have full-size sets of keys, and there are some laptops that force you to do extra function keys to get at different kinds of keys, and some of the laptops have some of the keys just plain missing in order to save space. But for this lesson, I'm assuming that you have access to a keyboard with full-size keys. Now let's see how we can use the cursor control keys to precisely move the cursor around the document. But just a quick review. When I move the mouse and move the mouse pointer out of a text area, it becomes an arrow. And anytime I want to select something, the mouse pointer will be an arrow. Unless I move the mouse pointer into a text area, then the pointer becomes this I bar. Even if I move the mouse pointer into a text box where I can enter text, I see this I bar. And that's true whether I'm in the body of the document or if I'm in any text box where it's possible to actually type text. Let me place the pointer somewhere in the middle of the document and click the left mouse button once. Now I'm moving the pointer away from that, but you should see the flashing text cursor, a small vertical line flashing at the spot where I selected with the mouse. And that's the text cursor. I'm going to move that text cursor around now using the cursor control keys. Every time I press the left pointing arrow, that flashing text cursor moves one character to the left. And similarly, if I push the right pointing cursor control arrow, each time I press that arrow, the text cursor moves one character to the right. If I push the up pointing arrow key, the text cursor will move up one line in the text. If I push the down arrow, the cursor will move down one line in the text. And now for the home and end keys. If you notice where the flashing cursor is right now, if I press the home key, you should see that the cursor has jumped to the left side of that line. I'm just going to arrow around here. Hopefully you can follow where the flashing cursor is now. Watch what happens to it when I press the end key. It jumps to the very end of the line that the cursor was on. Again, if I press the home key, watch it jump all the way to the left side of this line. Now it's to the left side of the line where it was flashing. Now, if I hold the control key down and press the home key, the cursor jumps to the very first text location in the document. If I hold the control key down and press the end key, the cursor jumps to the very end of the text document. So for precise control of the flashing text cursor, the cursor control keys are very important. The next important function when editing documents is to select text, and text that is currently selected will be highlighted. Frequently, we want to select text to perform some function, like make it bold or italic or whatever. Anyway, here are some techniques for selecting text. If I use the mouse pointer and I click and drag, you'll see that what I dragged over is selected. I click in a place and I drag the mouse away, release, and I've selected text. Beginners frequently use the click and drag technique for selecting text, but I recommend you get out of that habit. One of the problems is sometimes you'll select text and accidentally do something that drags that text to a different location, and then you have a little bit of an editing nightmare to correct. So here are some better ways to select text. To deselect text, by the way, you simply click in an area away from any text. The first trick is to select one word of text. I'll position the pointer over a word and then I'll double click, click, click. The double click will select one word precisely. Click, click, select one word. Click, click, select a word. So whenever you want to select a single word, use the double click trick. Suppose that I want to select a sentence. I'll position the cursor somewhere in the sentence and I'll triple click. Click, click, click. The triple click will select a complete sentence, even if the sentence is spread between lines. Click, click, click. The system can find out that word wrap has caused that sentence to be split between lines. So the triple click, 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 will select a complete sentence. Now this next one is a bit tricky for some people. It's the quadruple click. Click, 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 click. 4 clicks will select a complete paragraph. Click, 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 click. It selected everything from the beginning of that paragraph until you see the paragraph formatting mark. Click, 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 click. 4 clicks, quadruple click, will select a complete paragraph. Let me click away from that to deselect. And now let me show you something that's easier to do than to say. It's called the shift click trick. Let me select one word to start with a double click, click, click. Now I'm going to hold the shift key down and then I'm going to click in a new location and I'll select everything from the initial location to the end. I could do that without starting by selecting a word. For example, I could put the cursor at that position, do a shift click, and select everything from the initial position to the ending position. So the shift click trick. Click in a particular area or select something, hold the shift key down, and click again. Again, click away from any text to deselect. So those are several important tricks for precisely selecting text. This would be a very good time to pause this video and go through the printed tutorial step by step and practice the concept you've seen so far. Learning takes place a little better if you do more than just watch and listen. You actually have to do things to have the concepts really get settled into your brain. So pause these tutorials frequently and go to the printed version and do the steps yourself. Let me take a minute or so to review the concept of non-printing characters, also known as formatting marks characters. There's a toggle in LibreOffice Writer that turns these formatting marks on and off. You click it once and they're off, you click it again and they're on. Now some beginners, especially typists, don't like to see those non-printing characters displayed on the screen. They find them a little bit annoying. However, I encourage you to keep them turned on because they're very important. They tell you exactly how the document has been formatted. Here are a couple of examples of non-printing characters. Every time you hit the Enter key, you create a new paragraph, and the paragraph symbol is placed. It's actually a character, just like the letter S or just like the letter T or any other letter. As far as the software is concerned, this is another character, and it's there. If you hit the Enter key without typing anything, you'll create a new paragraph, and the non-printing paragraph symbol will show you exactly how that blank line occurred. If you press the Tab key, Tab, 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 there's a non-printing character that will show you how many times the Tab key was pressed. If you press the space bar, there's a little character that shows the space bar has been pressed. Here's the thing. If you have these non-printing characters turned off and you just look at this, you will not be able to tell how this line was actually created. You won't know whether someone pressed the Tab key 3 times or pressed the space bar many, many times. In this case, the word "this" might be indented because someone pressed the Tab key and then a few space bar presses, or they might have pressed many space bar presses, or it may be the paragraph style automatically indents this word. There's no way to tell which situation there is unless you have the non-printing characters turned on. If you would like to see what your document is going to look like without all of those non-printing characters showing up, use the Print Preview toggle. On the toolbar, there's a tool. When you select it, it will show you the page as it will finally look before you print it, and no non-printing characters will appear. It's a toggle. You press it once to get the print preview, you press it again, and the print preview is turned off. And once again, here's the formatting marks toggle on the toolbar. Please keep it turned on for your own peace of mind so you'll understand how your document is being formatted. Before we start doing some serious text formatting, I need to call your attention to the Undo tool. When you make a change to the document, the Undo tool will become highlighted. It will be colored like this rather than shaded. And if you do something and you don't want to keep that change, just select the Undo tool. And the Undo tool has multiple levels, so you can undo several things. If you undo too much and you want to redo something that you've undone, the Redo tool is available. It's gray and ghosted here. It will not be available until you've undone something. Until you use the Undo, you cannot redo. But the Undo and Redo tool are very useful when you start formatting text and editing documents. When you first start a new document in LibreOffice Writer, it uses settings that are called default settings. The 3 settings that are commonly in use when you add text to a document are the paragraph style, the font type, and the character size. When we created the My Lesson 1 document and then updated it to the My Lesson 2 document, all the settings were using the default settings. Now you can see the settings for paragraph style in this text box in the upper left part of the display on the text formatting toolbar. That, by the way, is repeated over in the sidebar. You can use either the sidebar option or the text formatting toolbar option. The default font style is shown here and also repeated in the sidebar, and the default font size are shown here and again repeated in the sidebar. Now notice what happens when I select the little down pointing arrow beside the paragraph style box. It provides me with a whole list of possible paragraph styles. Similarly, if I select the down pointing arrow beside the font name, it will give me a whole list of fonts. As a matter of fact, that list may be huge depending on how many different fonts you have installed in your computer. And in my computer, as you can see, I have way too many fonts. Also, there's a down pointing arrow beside the font size, and the system allows you to select from standard font sizes. If I move the text pointer into one of these boxes, it becomes a flashing text cursor. And whenever I have a flashing text cursor, I can actually use the backspace key or whatever, and I can type manually names to enter into those text boxes. When we created the text for this lesson, we only hit the enter key to stop a paragraph. We didn't worry at all about spacing between paragraphs, and we didn't worry about the fonts or the size. We just accepted the defaults for that. Now, I know that if you were a typist, that drove you crazy because you love to hit the carriage return more than once to put more lines in between paragraphs. But we're going to do it a better way. I'm going to use the selection trick to select all of the text in this document. I'm going to hold the Control key down and press the letter A to select all. And then I'm going to change the paragraph style. I don't like the default style. I'll go up here, click the little down arrow, and there's a style here named text body, and I'll select that. And notice what happened. Let me deselect now. The text body style automatically spaces between paragraphs. As a matter of fact, in a later lesson, you're going to see how you can control that by creating your own custom text body style. But for now, we'll accept the standard text body style. Let's change the text style for some specific entries. You'll have to remember the tricks for selecting text. I'll double click and then I'll shift click to select the words LibreOffice Writer. And now I'm going to use the text formatting toolbar to make that bold. I have to remind you that this is a toggle. If I select it once, it makes things bold. If I hit it again, it reverses that. It's either bold on or bold off. Bold on or bold off, italic on or off, underline on or off, strike through on or off. All of these individual formatting options are toggles that can be on or off. Next, I'm going to select the words Enter key. Double click on Enter, shift click until I have an Enter key selected. I want to make that bold, but this time I'm going to use the sidebar, the same tool that's repeated on the text formatting bar. You may want to get used to the sidebar as well as the text formatting bar. Some things are quicker and easier to find on the sidebar. While that's still selected, I'm also going to make it italic as well as bold. I'm trying to make the reader's attention focus on those words. It might even be better if those words would have been typed in uppercase, but I don't want to delete them and retype them. There's a rule of thumb in word processing that says you should never have to type anything twice. Since I don't want to retype those words, I need to find a way to change them to uppercase. And I can go to the menu bar, select Format, then select Text, and go down the list, and there it is. There is an option that will change things to uppercase. Just like that. Now, I don't know about you, but every once in a while when I'm typing, I accidentally bump the uppercase key. And so every once in a while, I create an editing nightmare. Not to worry. I'm going to use the triple click trick. Oh, that won't do. I'll have to use a quadruple click trick to select that entire paragraph. And then I'm going to go to Format, Text, and this time I'm going to toggle the case because I accidentally hit the caps lock key while I was typing and I didn't notice that. Some things are uppercase that should have been lower and vice versa. The toggle case option will bail you out. Well, that didn't bail me out. I selected Format, Text, Toggle Case, and it just reversed the problem. What was uppercase became lowercase, and what was lowercase became uppercase. Well, there's another option that'll solve this problem. I'm going to use sentence case for everything selected. And now it's corrected it. Well, it didn't correct my spelling, but it did correct my case problems. The next formatting trick involves indenting paragraphs. Let me put the text cursor in this second paragraph, and then over in the Properties sidebar, I'm going to find a tool that says Increase Indent. And I select that, and you notice what happened. That paragraph was indented. Each time I select the Increase Indent tool, it indents a little more. Fortunately, if I have heavy fingers and press that too many times, fortunately, there's a Decrease Indent tool that also works. Let's adjust the font style and size some more, but for this example, I want to add another line of text on top of everything else. So I'm going to hold the Control key down and press Home, and that'll put the cursor at the very beginning of the text. If I hit the Enter key, it'll add a paragraph there. Let me put the text cursor in that paragraph, and let's type some words here. And once we've typed my text document, let's select that entire paragraph, and let's make that be centered, either in the text formatting toolbar or in the sidebar. I have an option to center horizontally. And while that text is selected, I'm going to change it to bold. I'm going to change the font to something like Arial. Arial is a nice plain sans serif font. And then I'll change the size, maybe 18. That makes a nice title. Now, we used an alignment tool, the center alignment tool, to center that text. There are several other alignment tools that we have available. In the text version of this lesson, I provided a frame which has some samples of different alignment types. This paragraph is aligned to the left. This paragraph is centered. This paragraph is aligned right. And this entire paragraph is justified. And justified means that both the left side and the right side of the text are aligned to the margins. In this case, the margins of the frame that I've created. For narrow columns of text or large font sizes, the spacing between words may appear a little unnatural. You can see how the spacing has been messed with to make sure that the first word is lined up to the left and the last word in the line is lined up to the right. However, justified is one of the different alignment options available. Now we've made a few changes to this document, and we shouldn't go any farther without saving those changes. We can notice that our little Save tools has a sunburst, which means it has not been saved lately. So let me select the Save tool and update the My Lesson 2 document before we make any other changes. Now let's add a little color to this document. I'm going to select the My Text document title here. I have two choices. I can either go to the sidebar and change the font color, or I can go to the text formatting toolbar and also change the font color. There's this little arrow to the right side, and when I click on it, it opens up a whole bunch of colors that are available. Actually, it opened up the standard palette, and if you look here, you'll see that LibreOffice Writer comes with a lot of different palettes to pick from. I'll stick with a standard palette, and I'll go ahead and select the red color for my text. Now, as long as that text is selected, the color won't appear quite right because of the shading on selected text. If I click away from it, you'll see that the color has been changed to red for that font. Well, some people like to highlight text, and we have a highlight tool available in LibreOffice Writer. In the last paragraph, I'm going to select this sentence with a triple click, and then I'm going to go and find the highlighting tool and choose a highlighting color. I think I'll use light yellow 4. Then I'll click away from that selected text to see what it looks like. So you see how the highlighting tool works, similar to one of those markers you use. All of the background for the selected text is changed to the highlighted color. I'm going to go back up to the title paragraph, and I've already changed the font color, but this time I'm going to change the background color of that paragraph. Over here in my sidebar, there is a background color tool. I can select that, and I think I'll choose some kind of light blue color. And when I click away, you'll see that change the color for the background for that entire paragraph. Next, we'll talk briefly about bulleted lists. So I want to move the cursor to the very end of my document with Control End key. And then I'm going to start typing something like, this paragraph uses bullets. But before I end the paragraph, I'm going to go up to the text formatting bar, and I'm going to toggle the bulleted list on. And the reason I did that before I ended the paragraph was to show that when I hit the Enter key to end that paragraph, the next paragraph automatically gets a bullet as well. And when I enter words for that paragraph and hit the Enter key, it's set up for another bulleted list, but I don't want the next paragraph to have bullets, so I'll just hit the Enter key a second time, and the paragraph style will go back to text body. Numbered lists are similar to bulleted lists. Let me go to the end here, just add a blank paragraph and type something, and then toggle the numbered list option on. And you see that adds a number. And when I press the Enter key, it will add the next numbered list, and I'll type a paragraph for that. Press the Enter key, add another paragraph. Press the Enter key, press the Enter key again to stop the numbered list. Now notice that the system is smart enough to keep these things in nice order, but perhaps I don't want this paragraph to be part of the numbered list. So I'll put the cursor in paragraph 4, in the one whose list number is 4, and I'll go and toggle that paragraph numbered list option off. And notice, not only did it remove the number, it also updated the number for the following paragraph lists. So the numbered list option is a very smart option that's included with LibreOffice Writer. Well, we've covered a lot of ground in this lesson, and here are a few things to remember. First of all, whiteout is a thing of the past. Don't worry about typing precisely the first time. Just get the content down while the thoughts are fresh, and then edit any typos later. Also, word processors use proportional fonts. This means that you cannot rely on typing spaces to align things. Use paragraph styles to control text formatting. If you want to align rows and columns of text, such as a price list, for example, you should use a table, and we'll discuss that in a later lesson, and that will keep things aligned for you. Some beginners like to use columns, but columns are the wrong way to go when you want to line up adjacent columns of things. This paragraph is using bullets, but it also uses something called a hanging indent. This means the lines in this paragraph after the first line are indented more than the first line. You see the difference between this bulleted paragraph and this bulleted paragraph. We can actually create custom paragraphs, and they'll be covered in a later chapter. Let LibreOffice Writer take care of the spacing for you. Paragraph styles automatically include the amount of space before, after, above, and below, and the space between lines within paragraphs. And these tricks will be covered in later lessons. So those of you that are typists and are used to formatting things as you go, don't worry about doing that anymore. In word processing, we can use paragraph styles to control the formatting. You should go ahead and enter all the text into your documents first and worry about the style and appearance after you have the words in place. And don't forget to use the cursor control keys for precise movement of the text cursor in the document. You can use the N key to jump to the end of the line, use Control N to jump to the end of a document, use the Home key to jump to the beginning of a line, and Control Home to jump to the beginning of a document. If you double click on a word, you can select that word, triple click to select a complete sentence, quadruple click to select a complete paragraph. Toggle the Formatting Marks tool on to reveal the location of spaces, tabs, and Enter key presses or other non-printing characters. Use the text formatting toolbar or the sidebar to control font styles and placement. You can also use the text formatting toolbar or the sidebar to control font color, highlighting, and background color. Don't forget to use the undo tool to fix a mistake, and if you undo a little too much, you always have the redo tool.